All right, let's jump right into this explainer on the Roshar magic system. If you've been following the Stormlight Archive, you know the Knights Radiant are so much more than just your standard, run-of-the-mill fantasy warriors with cool magical loadouts. At their absolute core, these 10 orders are fundamentally about trauma recovery, self-mastery, and finding completely distinct philosophical paths to becoming a better person. So it's not just about objective power rankings or who hits the hardest. It's about why these orders exist in the first place, and how their unique worldview literally shapes the magic they wield. To make this massive 10-part ecosystem a little easier to digest, we're going to break things down. We'll look at the power of oaths, law versus morality, the unconventional warriors, seekers of truth, pillars of unity, and finally, figure out which order you actually belong to. Starting off with Section 1, the power of oath. Before we get into the specifics, we have to talk about the first ideal, known in universe as the immortal words. Life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. Every single order has to swear this universal oath just to get their foot in the door. It's proof that these powers aren't just handed out like candy, they're tied directly to deep personal growth. Speaking these words at the right time actually unlocks new surgebinding abilities. There are 5 ideals in total, and while everyone shares this first one, the next 4 demand total commitment to the specific virtues of your chosen order. Now, to actually fuel this magic, you have to form a Nahal bond with a radiant spren. Think of these spren as fully sentient splinters of the gods themselves, honor and cultivation. It's essentially a deeply intimate co-pilot situation. The spren gives you surges, which are the fundamental forces of the world, plus a shard blade and shard plate. In return, you anchor the spren in the physical realm, granting them sentience. But, and this is a massive but, this bond is incredibly fragile. If you break your oaths, it causes the spren actual agonizing physical pain. It severs the bond, resulting in a dead shard blade. Basically, a spren killed by broken promises that now takes 10 full heartbeats to summon and feels completely cold to the touch. It's tragic, honestly. Take a look at how this magic is actually distributed. This is the double eye of the Almighty, and it perfectly visualizes how all 10 orders share exactly one surge with their neighbor on the wheel. What this proves is that there is absolutely no best order. No single class is objectively the strongest. Every Radiant has overlapping powers, meaning their true strength entirely depends on the different types of utility, combat, and support they bring to the table based on what they personally value. Let's move to Section 2, Law versus Morality. Here's where things get really fascinating. We've got the Windrunners and the Skybreakers. Both of these orders share the gravitation surge, which basically means they can fly. But philosophically, they are total opposites. Kaladin's Windrunners combine flight with the surge of adhesion to act as protective, big siblings and scouts. Their oaths literally demand they protect the defenseless, even people they absolutely despise. On the flip side, you have Seth's Skybreakers. They pair gravitation with the highly destructive surge of division to act as merciless enforcers of the law. Driven by the madness of their herald, Nahal, they enforce rigid legal codes with zero compassion. It just goes to show how 2 groups can share the exact same skies, but pursue completely clashing ideals of right and wrong. Moving on to Section 3, the Unconventional Warriors. You know, not all Radiants are frontline fighters. Take the Edgedancers and the Dustbringers. Both share the surge of abrasion, which lets them control friction, so someone like Lift can just slide effortlessly across a battlefield. But Edgedancers bond cultivation spren and practically avoid combat altogether. They use their other surge progression to heal the wounded, swearing oaths to remember the forgotten common folk. Dustbringers, on the other hand, who actually prefer to be called releasers, bond Ashpren and combine abrasion with that terrifying surge of division. Characters like Mileta specialize in raw destruction, but here's the catch. They aren't just mindless weapons. They see themselves as precision engineers who need absolute self-mastery to contain the incredibly volatile decay they can unleash. Rounding out the physical powerhouses, we've got the Stonewards. These guys are your classic, enthusiastically dependable team players. Bonding Peakspren, their oaths are all about simply being there when things get rough. Using the surges of cohesion and tension, they can literally manipulate the molecular bonds of the Earth, controlling how stiff or rigid an object is. If you need a heavy infantry soldier who will absolutely hold the line no matter what, you want a Stoneward. All right, Section 4, Seekers of Truth. These are the minds operating behind the scenes. The scholars and the pragmatists. You've got Truthwatchers like Renorant using progression and illumination to uncover hidden, external worldly secrets. Then you have Elsecallers like Jasna Colon, who are just the ultimate pragmatists,
bonding Inkspren. Their entire philosophy is about reaching true potential. By mastering transformation or soul casting, they serve as vital logistical masterminds, turning one material into another to feed whole armies, all while using transportation to step right into the cognitive realm.
But then we have the Lightweavers, and they take a wildly different approach. This perfectly captures why characters like Shalon Davar are so unique. Lightweavers bond cryptics, which are literally known as Liespren. How ironic is that? An order whose progression relies entirely on confessing deep, internal truths about themselves, bonding Liespren. They use illumination and transformation to act as artists, performers, and spies. Because they deal constantly in illusions, their focus on internal, personal growth over strict external rules leads a lot of people to speculate that Lightweavers actually lean way more toward the shard of cultivation than they do toward honor.
On to Section 5, Pillars of Unity.
These are the orders that challenge the status quo and bind the world together. First up, the Willshapers, anchored by characters like Ventley. They are the absolute opponents of tyranny. They bond Lightspren, or Reachers, and whether they're builders expressing free art or soldiers freeing captives, they are radical thinkers. They use transportation and cohesion not just to build structures, but to actively break people out of absolute bondage. Freedom is the name of the game here.
And finally, the Bondsmiths. Because of their extreme scarcity, they are the most highly regarded radiants out there. There can only ever be a maximum of 3 true Bondsmiths at one time, simply because they bond one of 3 unique Godspren, the Stormfather, the Sibling, or the Night Watcher. Wielding tension and adhesion, characters like Dalinar and Navani Kholin act as the heart and soul of the Radiance. Their oaths? They are entirely about taking responsibility and uniting humanity rather than tearing it apart.
Which brings us to Section 6. Which order are you? Now that we've mapped out the entire Surgebinding ecosystem, it's time to see where you fit in. Remember, this isn't about which power wins in a duel. It's about what type of person you strive to be. Are you the protective big sibling? Boom, you're a Windrunner. Do you value strict unbending rules? You're a Skybreaker. Are you the dependable friend who's always there? Stoneward. Love art, self-expression, and facing your inner demons? Definitely a Lightweaver. Or maybe you're the peacemaker trying to unite conflicting groups. That makes you a Bondsmith.
The Knights Radiant prove that true magic comes from understanding yourself and committing to a higher ideal. It really forces us to ask, what deep, perhaps uncomfortable truth about yourself would you have to admit to summon a blade of your own? Keeping the immortal words in mind, which order are you ready to swear yourself to? Drop a comment below and let us know.